The old farmhouse stood silhouetted against the dying light.
This is it, my escape, my sanctuary.
Eleanor's headlights cut through the gloom, momentarily illuminating the peeling paint and overgrown ivy.
I can do this, I can start over.
She stepped out of the car, dragging her suitcase up the creaking porch steps, feeling a tremor of unease. Days melted into an unsettling routine.
I can make this place mine, I just need to keep busy.
But the silence was always there, amplifying every creak and groan.
It's just the house settling, nothing to worry about.
Lying awake, she imagined footsteps and whispers.
Calm down, Eleanor, it's all in your head.
One evening, a faint scratching from the air vent sent shivers up her spine.
What on earth is that?
The scratching from the vents became a nightly ritual.
I can't go on like this, I need to sleep.
One night, the scratching escalated into thumps and bangs.
Please make it stop.
As dawn broke, Eleanor knew the nightmare was far from over. The days that followed were a blur of anxiety.
I have to stay strong, I can't let this break me.
One evening, she felt a cold draft on her neck.
What was that?
She saw a fleeting shadow, sending adrenaline coursing through her veins.
There's nothing here. But why do I feel like I'm being watched?
Desperation gnawed at Eleanor's resolve.
I called Benjamin Holloway, the handyman.
He arrived, his face etched with concern.
Old houses play tricks on the mind, ma'am.
His words were meant to reassure, but they only deepened her unease. Ben approached the situation with a workmanlike attitude.
Most likely it's just mice, or maybe squirrels.
Eleanor watched him work, a sliver of hope blooming in her chest.
See, nothing to worry about.
Relief washed over Eleanor as Ben's presence seemed to dispel the shadows. The scratching sounds returned, fainter but unsettling.
One afternoon, I stumbled upon a loose floorboard.
Beneath it, she discovered a small wooden box.
A leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with grotesque sketches.
Eleanor knew she had stumbled into something dark and malevolent. That night, sleep eluded Eleanor entirely.
My phone rang, shattering the silence.
The caller ID displayed an unknown number.
Eleanor, I see you.
The voice on the other end of the line had been real, and it had spoken with an intimacy that chilled her to the bone. Panic seized Eleanor, propelling her out of bed and towards the bedroom door. She had to escape the suffocating darkness closing in around her.
As I fumbled with the doorknob, my hand brushed against something cold and slimy.
She recoiled with a gasp, seeing a skeletal handprint burned into the wood. Terror lent her a burst of frantic energy. She wrenched the door open and fled into the hallway.
The house groaned and shuddered, shadows lengthening. I could hear scratching sounds behind me, closer now.
She didn't dare look back, her lungs burning. She burst out of the front door into the pale light of dawn.
As I stumbled towards my car, I allowed myself a single glance back at the farmhouse.
Silhouetted against the rising sun, she saw him, a tall, gaunt figure in the upstairs window. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure was gone, leaving behind only the oppressive silence. Back in the relative safety of her car, engine idling, Eleanor tried to convince herself it was all a bad dream. The handprint, the phone call, the figure in the window, all figments of a sleep-deprived, overactive imagination. But deep down, a cold knot of fear tightened in her stomach. Something wasn't right. She could feel it in her bones, a primal instinct screaming at her to run.
Glancing at my phone, I noticed a new video file, time-stamped just minutes ago. Confused, I clicked on it.
The footage was dark, grainy, filmed in a cramped, claustrophobic space. Her breath hitched as she recognized the air vent above her bed. This was no ordinary recording. This was taken from inside the vent. The camera panned slowly, revealing more of the dust-choked passage. Then a shape emerged from the darkness, a man, his face gaunt, his eyes wide and vacant, pressed against the vent slats. He was staring directly at the camera, at her.
My blood ran cold. He was wearing my missing scarf.
The video ended abruptly, leaving Eleanor gasping for air, her heart hammering against her ribs. This wasn't a nightmare. This was real. The man in the vents, the whispers, the phone call. It was all connected, and she was trapped in a nightmare of her own making.
Desperate measures, seeking solace in action. I knew I couldn't stay in the house, not for another minute. I had to get help, had to find someone who would believe me. But who? The police? They would think I was delusional, a danger to myself. Ben, the handyman, he'd warned me, hadn't he? Warned me about the darkness that clung to the old house.
Frantically, she scrolled through her contacts, her finger hovering over Ben's name. He might be her only hope, the only one who might believe her, even a little. Just as she was about to press call, a loud crash from inside the house jolted her back to the present. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the stillness, followed by the unmistakable thud of heavy footsteps on the floorboards above her.
He was in the house. He was coming for me.
Panic surged through her, drowning out all rational thought. She slammed her foot on the accelerator, tires spitting gravel as she sped away from the house. The image of the man's haunting eyes seared into her memory. As she drove, the rising sun painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, a terrifying thought took root in her mind.
He was watching me. He had been watching me all along. And now that he knew I had seen him, there was no escape.
Miles blurred into a terrifying kaleidoscope of fear and adrenaline as Eleanor pushed her car to its limits. The world outside the windshield seemed to warp and distort, a reflection of her own fractured state of mind. Every shadow, every passing car, every creak of the vehicle felt like a manifestation of the unseen terror that pursued her.
Stopping at a gas station miles down the road, I stumbled out of the car, gasping for breath, my legs shaking beneath me. The fluorescent lights of the mini-mart felt harsh and unforgiving, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and contort on the linoleum floor.
She caught her reflection in the glass door, pale, wide-eyed, a stranger staring back at her. As she fumbled for her wallet, a chilling realization washed over her.
I could still feel his gaze on me, burning into the back of my neck, as real and as palpable as a physical touch. He was here, somewhere in the shadows, watching me, toying with me, enjoying my terror.
The walls between reality and nightmare were crumbling, and she was slipping through the cracks into a terrifying abyss of madness. Leaving the gas station, Eleanor's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel. She could feel his presence lurking in the periphery of her vision, a phantom passenger in her desperate flight from the truth. The radio crackled with static, the familiar voices of daytime DJs replaced by a low guttural whispering that seemed to emanate from the very air vents of her car.
Driving through a small town, I thought I saw him, a fleeting glimpse of a tall, gaunt figure disappearing down a side street. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat urging me onward, away from the encroaching darkness.
But the highway ahead seemed to stretch endlessly before her, a ribbon of asphalt winding its way through a desolate landscape of barren fields and skeletal trees. The sun began its descent, casting long, ominous shadows that stretched towards her like grasping claws. Night was coming, and with it the terrifying certainty that she could not outrun the darkness that pursued her.
It was in the shadows, it was in the whispers, it was in the very air I breathed. I was fleeing into the nightmare, and there was nowhere left to run. The harsh fluorescent lights of the diner mocked my ragged breaths as I clutched a lukewarm cup of coffee, my body trembling with exhaustion and lingering terror. I had driven until the rising sun burned away the shadows, until familiar landmarks reassured me I wasn't lost to the nightmare. Finding solace in the mundane bustle of a roadside diner, I believed I had escaped the farmhouse and its horrors. But the fear, a cold serpent, still coiled in my stomach, its scales glinting with the memory of the man's vacant eyes. I had escaped, but the shadows of the farmhouse stretched far beyond its walls, whispering doubts in my ear.
Summoning courage, Eleanor recounted her ordeal to the police, her voice trembling, desperate to be heard, to be believed. But she saw the skepticism in their eyes, the subtle shift in their posture that spoke of disbelief.
We will investigate, ma'am, we promise.
Their words were meant to be reassuring, but they rang hollow in her ears. They promised to investigate, but their tone implied they were humoring her, expecting to find nothing but an old house and a lonely woman. And perhaps, a small voice whispered in her mind, that was all it was. Perhaps she was losing her grip on reality, her sanity unraveling like an old tapestry. Eleanor waited with bated breath for news from the police, clinging to the hope that they would find something, anything to corroborate her story, to prove that she wasn't imagining things. But the hours stretched into days, each unanswered phone call, each unanswered knock on her motel room door, amplifying her anxieties, feeding the growing suspicion that they didn't believe her, that they had dismissed her case as the ramblings of a troubled mind.
Ben, I don't know what to do. They don't believe me. They think I'm crazy.
Hey, it's okay. I believe you. Tell me everything.
To her relief, he didn't scoff, didn't dismiss her fears as the product of an overactive imagination. Instead, he listened patiently, his silence laced with concern, his voice, when he finally spoke, a low rumble that offered a sliver of comfort in the face of her mounting terror.
I went back to the farmhouse, met with the police, checked the crawl spaces myself, but nothing. No signs of forced entry, no trace of another person. The house stood empty, silent, its secrets locked tight within its crumbling walls.
The police, he explained, were baffled. They had found traces, subtle inconsistencies that hinted at something amiss, a footprint in the dust that couldn't be accounted for, a door left slightly ajar, a faint musky odor that spoke of something more than just decay and neglect. But without concrete evidence, without a rational explanation, they were left grasping at straws, their investigation stymied by the lack of anything tangible to support Eleanor's claims. The lack of answers gnawed at Eleanor's sanity, fueling the insidious doubts that whispered in the dark corners of her mind. Was she losing her grip on reality? Her isolation was a terrifying possibility, a chilling echo of the whispers from the farmhouse.
I keep replaying the events in my mind, searching for a logical explanation. But each time I think I've found an answer, a new detail shatters my fragile peace. Some horrors defy logic, rooted in a darkness beyond comprehension.
The police closed the case with more questions than answers. The farmhouse, its secrets intact, stood as a testament to the horrors within its walls, a place of pilgrimage for the curious, drawn to its dark allure like moths to a flame.
The farmhouse remains a haunted memory, a reminder of the fragility of sanity. I escaped its clutches, but the shadows linger, whispering doubts, reminding me that some scars are etched onto the soul.
Eleanor eventually moved on, rebuilding her life far from the haunting silence of the farmhouse, seeking solace in the comforting routines of normalcy, the reassuring presence of friends and family. But the experience had changed her, had carved a permanent mark on her psyche, a chilling reminder that some things could not be unseen, some fears could not be outrun.
I carry the memory of the farmhouse with me, a phantom limb that aches with the weight of unspoken truths and unanswered questions. The scratching sounds, the chilling phone call, the man's vacant eyes peering from the shadows. They haunt my dreams, my waking thoughts, a constant undercurrent of unease that colors my perception of the world.
She learned to live with the fear, to compartmentalize it, to push it to the back of her mind where it couldn't consume her. But it was always there, lurking beneath the surface, a constant reminder that the world was a far stranger, far more terrifying place than she had ever imagined.
And sometimes, in the stillness of the night, when the wind howls outside my window and the shadows dance in the corners of my room, I can almost hear the whispers again, faint and insidious, carried on the breeze like fallen leaves, whispering my name, reminding me that some doors once opened can never be truly closed, and some shadows once embraced will follow you forever.